I have miles and miles ahead of me, tales to listen to, time to spend. Up ahead, the road is bending. Wonder what's around the bend.
Hello, I'm Charles Kuralt. We're off again to meet a few people on the back roads of America. These are people you know, not from the front pages. They've never been on the front pages. They're people you know from next door and down the block. Their stories are some of my favorites from 25 years on the road. You do not have to go out on the road to learn that little things mean a lot. It's just that you're reminded when you are out on the road how true that is. Gap Creek is a little thing that means a lot, to Rooster Cogburn for one. In time, Gap Creek is a little thing that means a lot even to the mighty Mississippi. We'll follow Gap Creek a ways. And then there's this little thing, than which you can't get much littler. It's got a big purpose, though, as you'll learn. Here's a fellow who long since pared his life down to bare essentials, just a few little things. Give him a donkey and a vacant lot, and he's all set in one of the poshest neighborhoods in the country.
You take the hot dog, and you have to put your finger over the end of the hot dog. And you put
Then there's P. Stephen Potter, attorney at law. Never mind the law, though. The little thing that brings P. Stephen Potter joy is delivering hot dogs by air. Often enough, we don't know who we have to thank for some of the most important little things in our lives. For quite a few of them, it turns out that we have to thank Norway. Come along. "4,000 years ago, it must have occurred to a Norwegian who lived on a snowy hill that it was foolish to walk down if he could slide down. Norwegians are no fools. There's a 4,000-year-old cave painting of a Norwegian on skis. So let's wave the flag for skis, a Norwegian invention. And let's have a cheer for Norwegian inventiveness. Jarlsberg cheese, for example, has holes in it like a certain other cheese. But Jarlsberg is purely Norwegian, and hear this, Norway exports it by the ton to Switzerland. Think about it. And cheese slicers, of which there is a dazzling variety in the stores here. Why not? The cheese slicer was invented and patented in the 1930s by Thor Bjorklund of Lillehammer, Norway. We used to have these big goat cheeses, explains Thor's son Trygve. My father had to cut the cheese with a knife like everybody else, thick slices, and there were a lot of children in the family. My father was irritated that the cheese went too fast. You see, necessity really is the mother of invention. The Bjorklund family company still sells about 1 million cheese slicers a year from right here in Lillehammer. Then there is this, the whole basis of the Norwegian economy once upon a time. This, a dried haddock or cod or something. Pretty hard to tell what it used to be. As far back as the 9th century, the Vikings sailed the world trading these things for wine, which was a pretty good deal for the Vikings, if you ask me. As for fish hooks, they used to be made by hand, one at a time, by craftsmen in Old England. These days, they're made by the billions in white heat at a feverish pace down the road here at the Mustad factory in Gjøvik, Norway. Enough fish hooks to catch all the fish that swim in all the seas. And they work, as we confirmed by watching a frozen Norwegian gentleman having frozen Norwegian fun on a frozen Norwegian lake. Norway sends the world fish hooks as tiny as these. As every trout fisherman knows, a little hook can catch a big fish. Of course, if it's a really big fish you're after, Norway's thought of that too. Let's see, what else? Well, flatbread. Norwegians adore flatbread. Here in the flatbread department, I counted 27 brands. They all taste the same. But my favorite is Mother's flatbread, because Mother looks so nice. The paperclip was invented by Johan Voller of Norway in 1899. During World War II, Norwegians wore paperclips on their lapels to show their unity against the Nazi occupation. Only in Norway is there such a monument to nationhood as this, a giant sculpture of a paperclip. Norway thought up the Luxo lamp, the key card to let us into our hotel rooms, and fishnet underwear. Norwegians have been thinking for centuries, but not every thought has been so terrific, frankly. Only the Vikings could have thought of squeezing the liver of a fish and drinking whatever comes out. It tasted so bad they figured it had to be good for them. Generations of American mothers have figured the same. We can blame the Norwegians for cod liver oil. We stopped by Gothenburg, Nebraska to meet P. Stephen Potter, attorney at law, and interview him on his specialty, not law, his other specialty.
You take the hot dog and you have to put your finger over the end of the hot dog. And you put it over the end so that when you throw it, you let it roll off so that it will spin end over end. And you get the best carry that way.
You see, on football Saturdays for more than 20 years, P. Stephen Potter has closed his law office and traveled across the state to the University of Nebraska Stadium to throw sizzling hot dog passes into the hungry stands.
Hot dogs! I will sell about 300 to 450 hot dogs on a typical Saturday.
And hardly a one handed to anybody. All of them go through the air.
I make a point that if you pay your money, even if you're a foot away, you get delivery through the air.
Long ago, P. Stephen Potter's passing arm was recognized as one of the greatest ever at Nebraska. On a snowy afternoon against Kansas State, his completions far exceeded anything on the field. During one boring game several seasons back, in fact, the football players stopped to watch him.
Hot dogs!
This man, who wears a ridiculous getup and wears out his arm on Saturday, is a good criminal lawyer Monday through Friday. In fact, he was offered the job of county attorney in Grand Island one time on 3 conditions.
1 was quit riding motorcycles. 2 was cut my hair. And 3 was quit selling hot dogs at the Nebraska football game.
As you see, he turned the job down. He was prepared to quit riding motorcycles and cut his hair, but he asked himself what kind of county board would ask its attorney to quit selling hot dogs. Law is his work. This is his joy.
A lot of little kids, their highlight of the Saturday was catching the hot dogs, and you can see it in their faces.
And that's good for you, too.
I love it.
Tomorrow, Nebraska versus Oklahoma, the big game. If things get slow on the field, Nebraska fans know there's always a good show in the stands. We met another such man in unlikely surroundings. We drove from Palm Springs to Palm Desert, and right here in the middle of this playground of the rich, right here on some of this country's most extravagant real estate, is where we found Andy the Donkey Man. living free. Andy got here in 1931, before the swimming pools and the Cadillacs. In those days, he and his donkeys moved freely through the sagebrush and cactus, and he prospected where he wished and camped where he pleased. Then the highways boxed him in, and the golf courses shut him out. When we met him, he had parked his wagon on one of the last vacant lots, and here, surrounded, Andy the donkey man was making his last stand.
In them days, you could go on the highway, any highway, they never bothered you. You could drive a team any place. But they made a freeway out of that, and when you go on the highway now, they stop you. And then we used to have big bonfires here, you know, nighttime, and everybody sing and dance and raise the devil, you know, years ago this was, see? And by golly, now if you light a fire now, the fire department will come over here.
What's all this digging going
Well,
on?
they're going to put condominiums in here.
They are?
You know what condominiums are?
Yeah, and what's going to happen to you when they do that?
Well, I'll go over there.
Aren't you beginning to feel a little crowded?
Yeah, they kind of push me out, kind of.
Civilization claimed Andy the donkey man one night, not long after we met him. It was an accident. He was struck by a car and killed. And then the desert, which used to be all his, was all theirs. On our long drives across the country, we've had a little trouble staying awake. We've tried all the standard truck drivers' routines, listening to the radio, drinking coffee, eating peanut brittle, playing license plate poker. But these are all very unscientific methods. Predictably, science has come to our aid. I am wearing the Curry Welsh Eyelid actuated sleep warning device. When you close your eyes so much as a quarter of a second with this thing on, here's what happens. You're literally jolted awake by a siren. You end up afraid to go to sleep. The fathers of the Curry Welsh Eyelid activated sleep warning device are Aaron Welsh here from Warner Robins, Georgia, and George Curry of Macon. Mr. Curry, is this the first thing you've invented?
Yes.
I must say, you don't feel it in place after it's been there for a few minutes. Exactly how does it work, Mr. Welsh?
Relatively simple. The bracket is attached to the eyelid with a cosmetic glue. This is non-irritant to the skin, and attached to the bracket is a metal brush. Just beneath it is a patch that is conductive with two wires coming off one of each unit. As the eyelid falls from sleep, the eyelid drops as the muscle relaxes. The brush comes down, makes contact with the patch. This acts as an electric switch.
Just like that?
Right. This is fed to a low voltage power supply, which is unharmful to the human body. Then there is a timer that starts as soon as you hold or blink. However, the blink, if it's over a quarter of a second, only then will the alarm go off.
Yeah, so you can blink without scaring yourself to death.
Right.
But if you keep those eyes closed...
That's right.
Well, having an idea is one thing, and perfecting it is another. Where did you do the work on this marvelous device?
Well, we did our work on our kitchen table, my kitchen table. Aaron would come over at night, and we probably spent altogether maybe 10 or 12 nights on this in the evenings.
Do you envision the day when people are just driving all over America with little sirens going off to keep them awake?
Well, I certainly hope so. I think that it will catch on. I certainly do. And if it will save lives, this is very important. That's one of the things that intrigued me about this system, was the fact that it could save a human life.
Well, we've learned a lot about America while driving across this broad country. And among the most reassuring things is what we've learned here tonight, that the spirit of Franklin and Edison still lives. Charles Kuralt, CBS News, wide awake in Macon, Georgia. There aren't many roads in these parts. To find your way, you follow the creek. And if you follow Gap Creek, you begin to wonder what becomes of these diamond-studded waters in the end. What lies beyond the wild iris and sweet gum and dogwood trees? Rooster Cogburn can get us started. He has lived by the side of Gap Creek all his life.
Gap Creek, it's a little creek runs into Board Camp. Board Camp Creek runs into the Washita River. And I've hunted and cut logs and worked all up and down Gap Creek.
Rooster Cogburn knows Gap Creek the way he knows his old friends. The kind of knowing that takes a lifetime to come by.
Last whiskey I made was down yonder. Then you was down there. We made that whiskey. Last whiskey. Wildcat whiskey I ever made.
Elmer Lyles and Rooster Cogburn made good whiskey from the clear waters of Gap Creek and hid out from the revenuers in these woods. Mr. Cogburn traveled a bit in his younger days, but he never found a place that could compare to Gap Creek. If you follow Gap Creek, you will come eventually to Board Camp Creek, just as Mr. Cogburn said you would, a creek that gathers strength before it pours itself into the headwaters of the Washita. The Washita River snakes for 300 miles through Arkansas and into Louisiana. Every spring it overflows its banks. Every summer the river falls. Huey Rhodes lives with the river in high water and in low.
This river is home, life to me. Been here for a long time. Don't want to go anywhere else.
Huey Rhodes feels about the Washita River the way Rooster Cogburn feels about Gap Creek. But here, the waters that started out so clear and clean in Arkansas aren't that way anymore.
When I was a kid and lived at the Alabama Landing down here, during the summer when the water was pool stage, you could see a can or a bottle 6 foot deep in the water on the bottom. Now you do good if you see a light 6 inches underwater.
The Washita River is still beautiful in Huey Rhodes' eyes, but he remembers how beautiful it used to be. From northern Louisiana, the Washita heads south toward Balcomville and Enterprise and Fort Necessity, rushing toward its final destination, the mighty Mississippi, a mile wide near New Orleans, even in the driest times. A torrent of water that sweeps along barges and tankers and tugs.
Middle Louisiana. I'm coming down behind a couple of empties. Which way you prefer to come by?
This is a whirl that runs 24 hours. I mean, Sunday at 2 a.m., you'll find boats and ships and people working, sandblasting going on, lights on all the time.
Alan Ellis's family has been running barges on the Mississippi for 3 generations.
You see, it's not an everyday, ordinary person that's out here in the first place. When somebody says, man, that guy's just a little unorthodox, don't mind him, he works on the river.
The people who live on the river learn to live with its rhythms and its moods. They know that low waters will rise again, just as flood waters recede, and that the Mississippi will endure, magnificent and majestic, rolling its mile-wide tide along to the Gulf. And up along Gap Creek, they know that the clear, clean waters will bubble up again with the next rain. And it will rain again, sooner or later. Well, time to say goodbye until our next trip together. We've heard about a story up the road here, but we kind of hope we never get there. With luck, we'll stumble upon something more interesting along the way. I can see the road is bending. Wonder what's around the bend.
All these years I've been a-wondering, just when I think I'm near the end, I always see the road is bending, and I wonder what's around the bend.